from Mr. Tim Williams. Thanks. So the witch trials that took place in England in the 1640s, a 19-month period of barbaric carnage, when about 300 women were burned alive for crimes of witchcraft and sorcery. And to put that in perspective, the death toll for that period accounts for approximately 2/3 of all the executions for witchcraft that took place in England between the mid-15th century and the late 18th century. And I think that's a very alarming statistic. And I think we need to look at that period in more detail to better understand what dark forces drove the people at that time to such a murderous frenzy, because I fear for the future of humanity if we don't. Echoes there. Acoustics, aren't they? And the whole thing was predicated on the interpretation of a 13th century text called the Malleus Maleficarum, which translates literally from Latin to mean the hammer of the witch, or the hammer of the witches. And we're going to be looking at that text more closely over the course of the next 2.5 hours. So...
Look forward to it, Tim.
You can hear the dull thud of disappointment reverberating throughout the room. The acorns of optimism you had at the start, and chestnuts of hope, have now been completely crushed by a nutcracker of incompetence. Rapidly dawned on you that you've all been grossly misled by the Wheat Chat promotion. Shipyard's first ever comedy club. Obviously that claim has now been totally discredited. Just another example of how social media incubates lies and deceit. You puddles of goodwill are out there at the start, now completely evaporated to form a suffocating fog of apathy and disillusionment. You half-hearted titters here and there from people who assume I'm being ironic. I'm not going to quickly segue into some genuinely funny material. And the unfolding horror when you realise that wasn't the case. We went to that Shipyard Comedy Club thing that they did the other night. What was that like? We expected it to be bad, but we didn't expect it to be that bad. They could have got a professional comedian from Beijing or Shanghai to do it, but they were asking about $3 or $4 grand, and the shipyard were too tight to fork out that amount of cash. So instead, they got the man who makes the sausages to do it for free. It's one of the worst performances I've ever seen, if I'm honest. I would rather be beheaded by jihadi terrorists in front of my own kids than sit through that shit again. If I'd been alive in Hitler's bunker during the dying days of the Third Reich and Goebbels was handing out the cyanide pills because the Russians were approaching and some people were reluctant to take their own lives, I'd show them a screening of that performance. Because I guarantee that every single person in the bunker will be filled with irreversible suicidal thoughts. When the bubonic plague was sweeping across Europe, wiping out a third of the population, and the only way to avoid airborne contamination was to lock yourself indoors and burn the bodies of the dead! If they saw a performance like that, they'd be outside on the streets, rolling around in plague-infected excrement. They'd be rioting to get to the shit first. Save some of that for me! There's no point living anymore! Rub it in your eyes, you'll get infected quicker! Dickhead! Didn't appear to have any basic understanding of the craft of comic writing or comic delivery. Showed no palpable enthusiasm whatsoever for making the audience laugh. Demonstrated no curiosity or insight into the world around him. I'm amazed he had the audacity to get there in the first place. Whatever talents he may have had, he failed abjectly to make use of them. Didn't attempt to strike up any kind of rapport with the audience, didn't do any repartee at the start or anything like that. He just immediately launched into a dry pedestrian monologue that contained at least 2 historical inaccuracies. Because the witch trials didn't last 19 months, did they? They lasted 2.5 years. And the death toll he cited has never been accurately verified. So not only did he talk for almost 3 hours about a subject that was of no interest or relevance to anyone in the room, he didn't even bother to research it properly. And as far as we were concerned, that was the least acceptable part of the fucking fiasco the evening turned into. We wouldn't have minded if he'd been bad, as long as he just fucking tried. We'd have happily sat through an awkwardly delivered, badly paced, poorly structured routine with punchlines that didn't work and setups that didn't come off, so long as there'd been some discernible effort there. We would have endured the discomfort of watching him publicly humiliate himself. And we'd have given him an encouraging round of applause at the end. That relief, more than anything, to be able to sit with fucking agony anymore. But he just arrogantly assumed he had something to say that people needed to hear. Didn't seem to care that the audience wasn't enjoying material. Our presence was of no consequence to him whatsoever. If anything, he seemed to resent us being there. As far as he was concerned, we were just there to indulge his pretensions. What kind of attitude is that? I wonder if he lives his life with that kind of attitude. I wouldn't be surprised. What philosophy does he subscribe to? Nihilism, I imagine. Be fascinated to take a walk around the inside of his head one day, but I dread to think what I might find. Grotesque sexual perversions.
Yeah!
Monstrous designs on young children.
Yeah!
Ideations of rape and sexual torture.
Woo!
Or the performance in Chicago.
I didn't think it was like that. I know there'd been allegations, but I didn't take them seriously. He always denied them. They always do. Then more women started to come forward, in alarming numbers. Allegations of a similar nature, inappropriate sexual behaviour, doing it for years. And he walked among us, hiding in plain sight. Saw him do a stand-up comedy act at the Shipyard once. Made a joke about his own sexual misconduct. Turns out it was just a smokescreen. Like Louis C.K. There were no exits inside his den of iniquity, flaunting a series of bioregulations in the process. But he wasn't alone. Other names were mentioned. The menfolk of her Bay lived in daily terror of being exposed, frantically trying to remember if they'd done anything in the past that could now be construed as sex abuse. Because it was all right then. You'd get away with it then a couple of years ago, but it's all changed now. All those late-night drunken WeChat messages to women with suggested content. Times they might have cornered a woman at a bar and pestered her for sex, and then lunged in for a kiss with too much ambition. Is that abuse now? I don't know. She did look scared. Demanding oral sex from a Chinese virgin, even though she was crying. Telling us to get out when she refused, even though it was snowing outside. Boundary-pushing sex act they pressured an ex-girlfriend to perform on them, going ahead with it, even though she was reluctant. Did I force her? I don't know. She was screaming. I just thought that was a very intense orgasm. I thought you could get that in the anus. Nobody was safe from the allegations. It was only a matter of time before it all came out. A blacklist of names was circulating on WeChat from an unverified source. But it didn't matter. The allegations were already out there. They were as good as true. Most of the men on the list were heterosexual and white. They always are. Couple of blacks and some gays of various ethnicities, but again predominantly white. Most of the men on the list were forced to resign their jobs as English teachers in disgrace. All the good teaching they'd done in the past was now totally discredited. All the students were forced to forget the knowledge they'd learned because it was now tainted by allegations of abuse. They apologised unreservedly for any offence or hurt their past behaviour may have caused. Accidental brush-ups near the toilets, overly persistent flirting, reaching across for a drink and accidentally touching a woman's tit. They expressed regret about keeping a 12-year-old girl captive in a custom-built sex dungeon and systematically raping her for years. Because it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, according to the feminist writer Suzanne Moore of The Guardian newspaper. A social media campaign was started. Hashtag us as well. The news went viral. The internet almost crashed. The most commonly searched for terms on Google were Her Fate Rape Society, Shipyard Paedophile Club, Xu Guanglu Non-Consensual Buggery Organisation. Suzanne Moore of The Guardian newspaper got involved. She started a public campaign to have them all chemically castrated. Even the men who weren't on the list were targeted, just to be safe. In a moment of madness, she even considered genocide as a final solution. But even Suzanne Moore realised that was a step too far. She considered gender segregation instead. She looked at Saudi Arabia as a model for a progressive liberal society. I don't know what we're laughing at anymore. Thought we were laughing at a rape joke. Now, alright, laughing at the rape joke. Not sure it's appropriate to laugh at this. Sounds like misogynistic hate speech to me. Good job he's not doing this routine in Britain or North America. He'd be no platformed. The irony. Yeah. Sorry about that, no, sorry about that, apologies. What happened was, I got to the bit about how all heterosexual white men are inherently evil. And I was supposed to do that for another 5 minutes or so, just sort of traducing male sexuality in general. Because from my left-wing Guardian reading viewpoint, that's the safest available option to me now. Because I didn't want there to be any ambiguity that might allow my left-wing liberal friends, particularly women, to think that I'm in some way misogynistic for suggesting that elements of the hashtag #MeToo campaign might have gone a little bit too far now. So yeah, I was supposed to do that for about 5 more minutes or so, and then I completely forgot what I was supposed to say, and I tried to improvise my way out of it. And I ended up thinking rationally, and...
Oh no! There we go!
Me too!
That's the problem when you think rationally, isn't it? You encounter the truth, and the truth is that having a penis doesn't put you in the same league as Satan. And that's something quite a few people on the liberal left seem to have forgotten now. People like Suzanne Moore of The Guardian newspaper, for example. So yeah, I was supposed to do that, and I ended up straying into a grey area that I was desperately trying to stay out of. Because there's nothing funny about grey areas, is there? Everything's got to be sort of clear and one-sided now. And it's sort of symptomatic of the whole shit show that Western civilization's become. Because you've got those two polar extremes, the left and the right, making all that noise. And that sort of middle ground of rational debate and sensible discourse has now completely collapsed into a crater of insanity. So you've got that fucking retard in the White House, for example, who appears to be using that fucking... Do you know who I fucking mean? Jesus. Who appears to be using social media as a platform to advance Armageddon. Future generations are going to look back on his tweets as a sort of digital book of revelations. Survivors of the apocalypse, if there are any. It's going to be like 2001 Space Odyssey. They're going to find one of those huge black monoliths, but it'll just be covered in Trump tweets. What is this strange ancient language? It's clearly not English. Barely decipherable. Obviously written by an illiterate peasant man with learning difficulties. Covfefe. What does that mean? We need a qualified etymologist to help us decode it, but unfortunately all the etymologists died out in the Holocaust. So we'll just have to impose our own meaning on the text instead and base a new religion upon our fundamental misunderstanding of what it meant. Bet that's never been done before. And the angel of death shall rise on the shores of Babylon. He shall wreak havoc in the city of Sodom, and he shall come henceforth bearing the mark of the orange fruit. I started writing a protest song about him now. It's called Hey Mr. Tangerine Man. Hey Mr. Tangerine Man, drop a bomb on me. I'm North Korean, so there's no point living anyway. Hey Mr. Tangerine Man, forget diplomacy. Push your button and let the death cloud come following me. Though I know the US empire has vanished in his hands, his tiny little hands, and within the cloud we feel our faces melting. The whole thing now is like a complete inversion of everything good that ever happened in the 1960s, isn't it? It's like a Philip K. Dick science fiction novel set during the Cuban Missile Crisis. NASA scientists conducting a pioneering research experiment and open up a wormhole onto a parallel dimension where the US president, far from trying to avert nuclear war, is actively trying to encourage it. And we've inadvertently stepped through that wormhole now, where the counterculture isn't being led by black activists and hippies, it's being led by people like Steve Bannon and Breitbart. Bob Dylan isn't a peace-loving beatnik, he's a neo-Nazi troubadour. Come gather round, racists, wherever you roam, and shoot the black people and burn down their homes. For he that shoots first is probably a cop, for the times they are appalling. Where have you been, my Mexican one? And where have you been, my undocumented one? I walked 10,000 miles in search of a green card. I stumbled alongside the Mexican border. I saw 10,000 men there operating heavy machinery. And it's a big wall they're gonna build. How many bullets must a homophobe fire before he kills all the gays? Yes, and how many scandals can one man take before he is impeached? Yes, and how many days do you think we have left until all that remains are our teeth? The answer, my friend, is coming in a tweet. Yes, it's coming in another fucking tweet. Thank you. The whole scenario now seems like it's been dreamed up in the imagination of Neil Young during a horrific acid trip. Well, I dreamed I heard the white supremacists calling, saying something about a wall. There were racists screaming, Steve Bannon scheming, all around the orange one. All in a dream, all in a dream, the chaos had begun. I was thinking about what a tweet had said, and I knew that it was a lie. I was thinking about what Covfefe meant, and I wish that I hadn't fucking tried. Look at Mother Nature on the run from the Paris Climate Accords. Overextended himself there with the high notes, didn't he? Should have stuck to Bob Dylan. That was more within his vocal range. There is a house in Washington. There lives an orange man. He's been the ruin of many a poor gal. And Hillary, oh God, she's won. She used to be so amused by the deplorables and Steve Bannon and the language that they used. Now she don't talk so loud. Now she don't seem so proud. 'Cause she lost to a man whose hair isn't even real. How does it feel? How does it feel to be disowned? 'Cause you're a soulless drone. Bit dated that, isn't it? Jokes about Hillary Clinton considering she lost the election 18 months ago. And I agree with you. It is bad, it is lazy. But the problem is, in the Trump era, it's very, very difficult to think up jokes that are contemporary and up to date and still relevant. Because he's so inconsistent and changes his mind so often. A joke that was funny yesterday is no longer funny today. But I wrote, after that mass shooting, the most recent one that happened in America, he came out with all that ridiculous bollocks about how all teachers should be given guns. And I wrote this sort of brilliant 10-minute routine, just sort of ripping him apart for that. And then a couple of days ago, he changed his fucking mind and started attacking the gun lobby. But you can't do that! Not now! I mean, obviously I agree with the concept of gun controls, but just not today. Wait until I've done the joke and then say it. All right, hundreds of people may be shot to death in the interim period, but still, I think it's a sacrifice worth making. So. And it'll say something ridiculous like, you know, all German people are lizards, or something like that. And then think of a 15-minute routine about lizards. And then the day before I'm going to do it, it will say, oh no, they're not lizards, they're just bad drivers. I can't change it now. I can't just change the words either, can I? I can't substitute the word lizard for driver. It wouldn't make any fucking sense. It would be incomprehensible. It was reptilian creatures. It was just, you know. I was expecting to wake up this morning to the news that he declared nuclear war, thus rendering all the jokes I did earlier now completely redundant. Bit dated, those nuclear Holocaust jokes now, aren't they, considering what's happened? We're the survivors of the Holocaust, aren't we? And there are no black monoliths. It's just a parched wasteland of people dying of radiation sickness. I understand it, you know, it's not relevant, is it, making jokes about Hillary Clinton, but, you know, it's hard to write material for a stand-up comedy routine. You've never done it. I mean, you know, the amount of fucking time I spent on this, what I've been through. I had to snort 8 grams of coke before this to give me the energy to do it. You know, time that I've lost. My son doesn't even know who I am anymore. Just looks at me with a vacant expression now. Do you want to play football with Daddy? Who's Daddy? The name seems vaguely familiar, but means nothing to me. You know, it's just... Oh, you can't... You know, at least you're writing about the past. You can't change the past, can you? That doesn't change. You can't rewrite history, can you? You can't pretend that things that happened in the past didn't happen. And vice versa. You can't pretend that things that didn't happen in the past did happen, can you? Because that is the behaviour of, you know, that is the sort of thing that only happens in countries like, you know. Stop there. Corner up there. Got room for a hanging basket there. Oh, fatherland, fatherland, show us a sign. The morning will come when the world is mine. Tomorrow belongs to me. See how I camouflaged that? I obscured it so well that almost nobody in the room got it. Even the people who think they got it didn't really get it. Because if you got it, you wouldn't just go, oh yeah, I got it. You go, oh, I got it. What is he talking about now? What? He was saying something about history, and then he turned his back on the audience and started pointing at the ceiling and mumbled something about hanging baskets, and then he started singing a song about where his dad comes from. What's that got to do with the circumstances that I currently find myself in? It bears absolutely no relation to the situation that I'm currently... I'm glad that almost none of you got that joke, and I don't think you'll ever hear a comedian say that again, because if he did get the joke, then I think my liberty would be in jeopardy. 1930s, wasn't it, when they introduced that law? Enabling drivers to drive at an unlimited speed on the outside lane of the auto.